Flywheel resistance training is a specialized form of training that uses the rotational inertia of spinning flywheel plates for resistance rather than lifting a weight against gravity. The basic concept behind flywheel training is that we have a rotating shaft underneath the platform here, and then a flywheel plate placed on that shaft. We can alter how the exercise feels and how it loads the body by changing out the flywheel plates on the device. We have our size 5 flywheel plate, which is our largest plate. This has a much higher inertial load than some of the other plates, and this causes the exercise to feel heavier and slower. On the other side, we have a size 1 flywheel plate, which is going to have a much lower inertial load. Exercises with this plate are going to feel much lighter and faster, or it may be more appropriate when training very small muscle groups. One of the things flywheel training is known for is the eccentric loading it provides. A resistance training exercise is generally going to have 2 phases. The first is the concentric phase, where the muscle is producing force as it shortens. For example, the up portion of a bicep curl. This is going to be followed by the eccentric phase when you're lowering the weight back down. And that's characterized by the muscle producing force as it lengthens. An important point is that human muscles tend to be much stronger during the eccentric phase of movements than the concentric. For example, it's much easier to lower a weight with gravity than it is to lift it against it. This is where flywheel training can help fill that gap, because instead of only challenging half of the movement, the momentum of the flywheel will provide an eccentric load to ensure that we get a consistent challenge throughout both phases of the movement. So we're going to demonstrate this with Dejan here. So the force that Dejan provides on the way up is going to cause that flywheel to build momentum, and that momentum is going to pull him back to the starting position. This means that he then has to provide an eccentric force that causes the flywheel to decelerate back to the start. Now I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the differences between traditional resistance training methods and flywheel training. Generally, traditional methods are going to be much harder during the concentric phase as you overcome gravity's downward acceleration, and then be relatively easy on the way back down as you slowly lower the weight back to the starting position. Now we're going to walk Dejan through a flywheel resistance training exercise to highlight the differences. First, we're going to find his end range. This is going to be the point that the flywheel actually causes him to change direction. So we want to make sure that the rope is at the length where we want the change of direction to occur. All right, I'm going to give it a little spin here to bring you down to the bottom. And start nice and easy on these first few. And as he performs these reps, you should notice a few things. When he pulls nice and easy on the way up, the flywheel is only going to generate a little bit of momentum, and the eccentric pull back to the starting position is going to be relatively low as well. Now I'm going to ask him to speed up a little bit, so let's put a little extra into this rep. You should immediately see that when he puts more force in on the way up, this flywheel plate is going to spin faster, and it's going to generate more momentum that he has to brake against on the way back down. Another piece I want you to notice is that compared to traditional resistance training methods, we have a very fluid, continuous motion with minimal transition time between phases and reps. All right, Dejan, we're going to transition into a lateral raise, and he's just going to adjust the rope here to find his end range with this exercise. One thing I want you to notice with this exercise as he performs the lateral raise is that he's able to apply a constant tension across the entire range of motion. So not only is flywheel training providing that recoil and forcing him to produce eccentric force on the way back down, but he has this very constant tension throughout the concentric phase as well. To show you the difference, a lateral raise with a dumbbell is going to have a slightly different loading dynamic. When my arm is close to my body, it's going to be much easier than when my arm is fully extended. For this reason, flywheel training is considered a gravity-independent type of loading, since the main form of resistance comes from the rotational inertia of these flywheel plates, rather than having to overcome gravity's downward acceleration. One of the nice benefits of flywheel training is what we refer to as user-defined resistance, which means that the more effort you put into the concentric phase, the more eccentric load is going to be provided on the way back down. In other words, the resistance scales to the input of the user on a rep-by-rep basis. This has quite a few practical benefits in that the resistance will always scale to what that individual user can do on each rep, and it will also adapt as that individual gets stronger over time. So Dejan, we're going to have you do another set here. So you'll notice he's not putting a whole lot of effort into these reps on these first few. And because of that, the flywheel is going to spin slower, and it's going to generate less resistance on the way back down. Now let's start to pick up the speed a little bit. As he starts to put more and more effort and speed into the exercise, the flywheel plate is gonna spin faster, and he's gonna have more momentum to decelerate against on the way back down. Okay, you can stop at the bottom. Key benefit of this user-defined resistance is that the load is always gonna meet you where you're at in terms of your current capabilities. If you're fatigued one day, you're gonna put less into each rep, and the resistance is gonna scale down to where you're at that day. On the opposite end, if you come in feeling well rested and ready to go, you're gonna be able to put more into each rep, and the loading is gonna meet you at that higher level. Similarly, if you have multiple users with slightly different strength levels, the resistance is gonna scale to where each one of those users are at on that day. This simplifies the process of picking the right load and right training stimulus for each individual. As each one of those individuals gets stronger over time, the resistance is also gonna scale up. This provides a natural safeguard when using flywheel training, where the load is always gonna meet that person where they're at on the day. A growing body of research is showing that flywheel training is a safe, effective, and efficient method for improving a wide range of goals. Whether your goal is to improve muscle size, strength, power, athletic performance, or come back from an injury, there's strong support for this type of training. Additionally, because of the user-defined resistance, it's an appropriate training method for a wide range of populations, from the beginner to the gym to the most elite athlete and everyone in between.